Cardano ADA, one of the greatest rivals of number 2 cryptocurrency in the world, which is Ethereum. By the end of today's video, you will know everything you need about it because I will cover its entire history. And even if you are a complete beginner and don't know anything about the world of crypto, you will be able to follow. And that is because every video on Bitcoin Academy is 100% beginner friendly. So without wasting time, let's start at the very beginning. In the early days of crypto, most projects were launched by developers who embraced the move fast and break things approach. But Cardano was different from the start. Its creator, Charles Hoskinson, envisioned something much more deliberate. You see, Charles was one of the original co-founders of Ethereum, but he left Ethereum in 2014 over disagreements about the project's future, particularly around governance and funding. While others wanted Ethereum to be a profit-driven company, Charles wanted a more academic, decentralized approach. After parting ways, he co-founded IOHK, Input Output Hong Kong, a research-driven tech company designed to build blockchain infrastructure with scientific rigor. With a team of computer scientists, cryptographers, and researchers from top universities, IOHK began working on a new kind of blockchain, one that would be peer-reviewed, formally verified, and built to last. Cardano wasn't trying to be the fastest or flashiest chain. It was aiming for robustness and sustainability. Every part of its architecture was designed from scratch and validated by academic papers. The philosophy was clear: take the time to do it right, even if it meant being slow to launch. In September 2017, Cardano officially launched its first phase, called Byron. This version introduced the ADA token and served as a settlement layer. Basically, a secure base to handle transactions, but without smart contracts yet. Still, it attracted attention for its clean design, energy efficiency, and unique consensus model called Ouroboros, the first proof-of-stake algorithm proven secure in academic literature. From day one, Cardano stood out as a blockchain that prioritized math over marketing and principles over speed. It wasn't for hype chasers. It was for those who believed in building something that could last for decades. After Cardano's launch in 2017 with the Byron phase, the project entered what some called its quiet years. But behind the scenes, the work was anything but quiet. IOHK and its team of researchers doubled down on formal development, writing dozens of peer-reviewed papers on everything from consensus theory to network architecture. While the rest of the crypto world rushed to release products, Cardano was still building its foundation, line by line, paper by paper. This deliberate pace drew criticism. Some called it vaporware. Others joked that Cardano was the most academically cited blockchain with no smart contracts. But believers saw something else, a project that valued security, decentralization, and long-term vision over short-term hype. And while the network remained minimal in features, ADA was actively traded, and the community quietly grew into one of the most passionate in crypto. The breakthrough came in July 2020, when Cardano launched its Shelley upgrade. This was no minor update. It marked the transition from a federated network, where IOHK and its partners ran the nodes, to a decentralized one where the community could operate the network. At its heart was the introduction of proof of stake, making ADA holders part of the consensus process. Suddenly, anyone could set up a staking pool or delegate their ADA to one, and earn passive rewards for helping secure the network. The number of pools surged past 1,000 within months, quickly making Cardano one of the most decentralized blockchains by node count. This moment, Shelley, was a turning point. It proved that Cardano wasn't just theory. It was real, decentralized, and capable of running at scale. More than just a technical upgrade, it was a validation of the slow and steady approach Charles and IOHK had championed all along. By 2021, Cardano had successfully proven it could decentralize. But now came the real test. Could it compete with Ethereum as a platform for smart contracts and decentralized applications? This next chapter, known as the Goguen era, would be one of the most highly anticipated and closely watched moments in Cardano's history. For years, critics said Cardano was all talk. There were academic papers, whiteboards full of diagrams, and Charles Hoskinson's regular video updates, but still no smart contracts. That changed in September 2021 with the Alonzo hard fork, which officially activated Plutus smart contracts on the mainnet. Finally, developers could begin building real applications directly on Cardano's blockchain. But there was a catch. Plutus was based on Haskell, a programming language known for its precision and security, but also its steep learning curve. Unlike Solidity on Ethereum, Plutus wasn't beginner-friendly. While powerful and mathematically rigorous, it posed challenges for new developers trying to build quickly. Still, the rollout was a symbolic and functional milestone. For the first time, Cardano could host DeFi, NFTs, and dApps, all on-chain. The ecosystem sprang into action, though it took time for tools and platforms, such as wallets, explorers, and APIs, to catch up. Projects began to deploy, but many encountered early issues with concurrency and transaction throughput, leading some to call Cardano's smart contracts too academic for real-world use. Despite the rough start, the community stayed engaged, excited by the possibilities. Cardano wasn't aiming to be flashy. It was aiming to be robust. And with Plutus now live, the blockchain finally had the functionality it had promised since 2017. Goguen marked the moment when Cardano moved from potential to practice. The infrastructure was still maturing, but the foundation was finally there, and the world was watching. With smart contracts now live, the Cardano ecosystem faced its next major milestone: real-world adoption. The second half of 2021 into early 2022 saw the emergence of DeFi protocols, NFT projects, and a growing number of users interacting with Cardano in ways never before possible. But it also marked the beginning of new and very real challenges. One of the earliest and most anticipated DeFi projects was SundaySwap, a decentralized exchange designed to bring AMM, automated market maker, functionality to Cardano. Its launch in early 2022 drew massive attention and just as much scrutiny. As soon as trading went live, the network became congested. Transactions were delayed for hours. Critics pounced, declaring that Cardano's fancy academic designs couldn't handle real demand. At the heart of the issue was Cardano's EUTXO model, a variation of Bitcoin's transaction structure that prioritizes security and determinism. While this model prevents many smart contract bugs seen on Ethereum, it introduced new limitations, particularly around concurrent transactions. Developers had to innovate around these constraints, which took time and effort. Meanwhile, NFTs took off in an unexpected way. Even before Plutus smart contracts, users found creative ways to mint and trade NFTs using native tokens. By early 2022, Cardano had a thriving NFT community, with marketplaces like cnft.io and jpg.store gaining traction. The low fees and strong community vibe made Cardano an attractive home for artists and collectors, even if the tech was still evolving. As the network strained under demand, questions emerged. Was Cardano too slow to scale? Was its design too complex for rapid growth? Supporters pointed out that slow, careful development was part of the plan. Critics wanted more immediate results. Either way, the pressure was on. Cardano had proven it could run smart contracts. Now, it had to prove it could scale and survive the flood of real usage. After launching smart contracts in 2021, Cardano entered its next critical phase: scaling. This phase, known as the Basho era, was designed to improve the network's performance, throughput, and infrastructure without compromising its core principles of decentralization and formal verification. One of the first major upgrades was the Vasil hard fork, named after the late Cardano community member Vasil Dabov. Activated in September 2022, Vasil introduced key improvements to the Plutus smart contract language, enabling greater efficiency and flexibility for developers. It also optimized how transactions were processed, allowing multiple operations to be batched into a single block more effectively. This upgrade marked a turning point. It showed that Cardano could improve its performance without disrupting its careful architectural design. But Vasil was just the beginning. IOHK began developing Hydra, a Layer 2 scaling solution designed to handle high-throughput use cases like micropayments, gaming, and real-time applications. Hydra works by creating multiple heads, or off-chain ledgers, that connect to the main chain but process transactions independently. The result? Drastically increased capacity while keeping fees low and finality fast. Cardano also began experimenting with input endorsers, a future feature aimed at boosting block propagation and parallelism. These innovations were part of a larger effort to make Cardano capable of supporting global-scale financial applications and enterprise-level adoption. Beyond performance, interoperability became a focus. IOHK started work on sidechains, allowing other blockchains or systems to connect to Cardano securely. This meant Ethereum developers, for example, could eventually bring their apps to Cardano's environment with minimal friction. Through all of this, Cardano stayed true to its methodical philosophy. Critics still called it slow. Supporters saw a platform maturing at its own pace, deliberately, but with purpose. By the end of 2023, Cardano hadn't just scaled, it had laid the foundations for a blockchain that could adapt, expand, and evolve for decades to come. While most crypto projects chased short-term gains or speculative hype, Cardano quietly leaned into real-world impact and long-term strategy. In 2023, that meant two things: working with governments in Africa and positioning as a regulation-friendly digital asset. Cardano's African ambitions weren't new, but in 2023, they began to materialize in meaningful ways. One of the most prominent projects involved a partnership with the Ethiopian government to create blockchain-based digital identities for millions of students and teachers. The goal? Improve transparency in education, provide tamper-proof records, and give students a portable, verifiable academic history. This wasn't a pilot. It was a large-scale deployment, backed by IOHK's tech and local engagement. Other efforts included work on land registry systems, mobile infrastructure for banking the unbanked, and creating transparent government systems through blockchain-based records. These initiatives showcased Cardano's vision of blockchain for social good, a stark contrast to the image of crypto as speculative gambling. Simultaneously, Cardano started to shine in regulatory discussions. As global governments tightened crypto oversight, ADA gained attention as a compliant, academically grounded asset. Cardano's layered architecture, transparent governance plans, and formal methods made it easier to present as a responsible blockchain, not an anonymous free-for-all. Its partnerships with educational and governmental institutions added to this credibility. Unlike other blockchains that faced SEC lawsuits or were delisted over compliance concerns, ADA managed to avoid major regulatory clashes in 2023. Some saw this as a competitive edge, a blockchain that could scale within the system rather than against it. Of course, these moves didn't generate Twitter buzz or massive price pumps, but they weren't supposed to. They were long-term plays, bets that utility, reputation, and regulatory readiness would pay off in the next wave of adoption. By the end of 2023, Cardano wasn't the loudest player in crypto, but it was building something many others weren't: trust. By 2024, Cardano entered what might be its most ambitious and defining phase yet: Voltaire. Named after the Enlightenment thinker, this phase wasn't about speed or scale. It was about self-governance. Cardano aimed to become the first major blockchain to be truly run by its community. Voltaire introduced a full on-chain governance system where ADA holders could vote on development proposals, funding allocations, and even changes to the protocol itself. Think of it as a decentralized democracy baked into the very core of the blockchain. The days of relying solely on IOHK or the Cardano Foundation were over. Power was shifting into the hands of the network's users. This system was powered by a treasury, a pool of ADA set aside specifically for community-approved projects. Anyone could submit a proposal, and if it gained enough support through voting, it would receive funding. This wasn't theoretical. In 2024, dozens of proposals were already funded, from developer tools and educational materials to ecosystem-wide infrastructure upgrades. The governance process was designed to be formal, transparent, and secure. IOHK implemented it using peer-reviewed systems like Catalyst and DREP, delegated representatives, to strike a balance between accessibility and informed decision-making. Critics questioned whether the average ADA holder was equipped to make technical decisions. Supporters argued that decentralized power was the whole point, and that Cardano's formal governance approach offered a framework to educate and empower its community. Most importantly, Voltaire addressed a question most blockchains avoid: who leads in the long run? Cardano now had an answer: everyone who holds ADA. With Voltaire, Cardano became more than just a smart contract platform. It became a self-sustaining, self-improving protocol, guided not by a founder or company, but by a global community with real power and real responsibility. By 2025, Cardano had fully matured, delivering on many of its long-held promises, even if public perception hadn't caught up. To many outside the ecosystem, Cardano still carried an outdated image: too slow, too academic, or too boring. But under the hood, the reality was very different. Smart contracts were now widely deployed. DeFi apps, NFT platforms, identity services, and DAO tooling had all taken root. More importantly, they were functioning efficiently and securely. Thanks to improvements like the Vasil hard fork and subsequent network upgrades, transaction throughput had increased significantly. Developer tooling, once seen as a barrier, had become more user-friendly through community-driven efforts. One of Cardano's most promising innovations in 2025 was Hydra, a layer 2 protocol designed for microtransactions and real-world scalability. Hydra heads allowed parts of the network to scale independently, enabling use cases like point-of-sale payments, games, and high-frequency applications, all without congesting the main chain. For a protocol once mocked for being too slow, this was a bold rebuttal. And then there was governance. After Voltaire's rollout in 2024, Cardano had fully embraced community-led development. Treasury-funded projects were flourishing, and decentralized representatives, DREPs, had begun to shape the protocol's roadmap. No longer reliant on IOHK or any single entity, Cardano had become one of the most self-governed blockchains in existence. Still, it wasn't perfect. Cardano faced challenges in attracting developers compared to trendier platforms like Solana or Avalanche. Its Haskell-based language, Plutus, remained powerful but hard to master, and its slower, methodical approach sometimes made it feel disconnected from the fast-moving crypto zeitgeist. Yet ADA remained in the top 10-15 by market cap. It wasn't because of hype, but because it worked. Secure, sustainable, scalable, governed by its people. Cardano in 2025 wasn't chasing attention. It was building something that could last. And that was about it for Cardano. But stay a second longer. By staying until the end, I can see that you are truly looking to educate yourself about crypto. If that is the case, make sure to watch one of these 2 videos you see on the screen right now. Also, please don't forget to leave a like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. All right, see you in one of my next videos.